Vincent DeLuca walked into the nightclub like the place already belonged to him. Not because he was showing off. It was something else. It was presence. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice for the room to adjust. The music was loud, the lights cut through the haze, and the floor pulsed under everyone's feet. Vincent had come for one reason: a quick meeting, a quiet confirmation, and then out. That was how he operated. In, done, gone. Then he saw Claire Bennett. And everything he planned stopped mattering. She was near the bar, laughing with a friend like there were no consequences in the world. She wore a short red sequin dress, low-cut, bold, and impossible to ignore. Every time she moved, the lights caught her like she was the main event. Her hair was down, her smile effortless, her confidence loud without her saying a word. Vincent froze for a beat. Not long. Just long enough for his body to react before his mind could control it. Heat in his chest, a tight jaw, a sharp, unfamiliar frustration. Because Claire wasn't just a random woman at a club. She was his assistant. At work, Claire was flawless, calm, sharp, organized, always in control. She dressed classy, spoke clearly, and handled chaos like it was routine. Vincent trusted her with everything because she never slipped. But here, in this nightclub, Claire wasn't the assistant. She was a woman who looked too good, too free, too confident. And Vincent hated how fast every man around her seemed to notice. He crossed the room without hesitation. His security team moved naturally, opening space without pushing anyone, just taking control of the flow. When Vincent reached Claire, her friend's eyes widened immediately, like she suddenly realized this was no longer just a fun night out. Claire turned slowly. Her smile faded a little, but it didn't disappear. It changed into something curious, like she was waiting to see what he was bold enough to say. Vincent tilted his head slightly, his eyes dropping from her face to the red dress and back again. His look wasn't dirty. It was worse. It was the look of a man solving a problem he didn't want to admit existed. He spoke low and steady, like he wasn't asking, like he was used to being obeyed. "Why are you dressed like that?" Claire blinked as if the question was too ridiculous to answer immediately. Then she smiled, slow, sharp, fearless. That smile tightened Vincent's stomach because it wasn't innocent. It was a challenge. She stepped closer, just enough that she didn't need to shout. "You're not my owner." Vincent's face hardened, not pure anger, surprise. Claire never spoke to him like that at the office, and right now, in this club, she had decided she wasn't going to be intimidated. Her friend looked like she wanted to apologize for her, but Claire lifted a hand without even turning, making it clear she didn't need saving. The silence between Claire and Vincent got heavy. The music kept going. People kept dancing. But around them, it felt like there was an invisible line no one wanted to cross. Vincent took a slow breath. The rational part of him tried to take control. Claire was an adult. This was her time, not his business. His body didn't care. Not when he saw a man across the bar staring at her like he was already planning how to get her attention. Vincent lifted his hand slightly, subtle, casual, like he was ordering another drink. One of his men understood instantly. Two guards shifted positions, not grabbing Claire, not touching her, just placing themselves around the area, forming a quiet perimeter, like they were there to keep the crowd from bumping into her. Claire noticed within seconds. She looked left. A guard. Looked right. Another. Behind her, a third man pretending he was just watching the club. Claire turned back to Vincent with a smile that was pure disbelief. "Seriously?" Vincent didn't move. "It's crowded." She let out a short laugh. "You don't care about crowds." He didn't answer because she was right. He didn't care about crowds. He cared about the way men looked at her like she was available. Claire took a sip of her drink and turned toward the dance floor like Vincent didn't exist. Like he was just another man with the nerve to control something he didn't own. Vincent stayed close. Not touching her, not hovering. Just present enough that everyone could feel it. Do not approach. And what made him even more irritated was the fact that Claire, after telling him he wasn't her owner, didn't leave. She danced with her friend. She laughed. She moved like she belonged to the night. Her dress sparkled, and the room kept noticing. Vincent, who never watched anyone longer than a few seconds, couldn't stop. The first attempt came fast. A tall man approached Claire with a confident smile, like he collected phone numbers for fun. He leaned in, ready to speak close to her ear. Before he could finish his second sentence, one of Vincent's guards stepped directly into the space between them. No pushing, no grabbing. Just a wall. The man frowned and tried to move around. Another guard appeared, calm and unmoved. "What the hell?" the man snapped. The guard offered a small, polite smile. "This way, sir." The man tried to argue, but the guard's open hand pointed firmly to the other side, making it clear. Conversation over. Claire saw everything. From across the floor, she stared straight at Vincent. Even from a distance, her eyes pulled him like a rope. "Are you kidding me?" she mouthed, clearly without sound. Vincent stood still as if none of it had anything to do with him. Then the corner of his mouth lifted for half a second, barely a smile. Claire's eyes widened, annoyed, and somehow almost amused. She marched toward him, fast, furious, and stunning up close. "Tell them to stop." Vincent's voice stayed calm. "Stop what?" "Stop removing men from my personal space." He tilted his head. "They're not removing anyone." Claire let out a sharp laugh. "Vincent, I just watched a guy get politely kidnapped." Vincent glanced over her shoulder like he was checking the room. He looked confused. "Yeah," she said, tightening her grip on her cup. "So am I. Why are your men circling me like I'm a celebrity?" Vincent finally looked directly into her eyes. Up close, it was worse. Her eyes were bright, alive, daring. And her perfume, subtle, expensive, different from the clean office scent, hit him in a way that made his patience thinner. He spoke low, only for her. "Because you're with me." Claire went still for a beat, as if the words landed somewhere she didn't want to feel. Then she recovered quickly. "I'm not with you. I work for you. There's a difference." Vincent didn't like that. Not just the meaning, the way she said it, like what they had was only paperwork. He stepped closer, just enough that his voice became private again. "Then act like it." Claire stepped back, offended. "Oh, so now you want me to act like something because you don't like my dress?" "Your dress isn't the problem," he said before he could stop himself. Claire narrowed her eyes. "Then what is?" Vincent held his breath for 2 seconds. Because the truth was simple. She looked too good, and he didn't know what to do with what it did to him. He kept wanting to move every man out of her way. That thought was ridiculous. It was dangerous. It was embarrassing, and it was real. He controlled his tone. "It's late. It's not the place." Claire let out a mocking laugh. "Says the man who owns half this city." Vincent didn't confirm or deny. He just held her gaze. She tilted her head, the red sequins catching the light like she was daring him to try again. "Is this about control?" she asked. "Because if it is, you picked the wrong woman." Something tight pulled in Vincent's chest. Not fear, not threat. Respect. Claire was stubborn and fearless, and right now she looked more alive than anyone in the room, which only made the jealousy worse. Another man tried. Younger, more confident. He walked up with 2 drinks and a practiced smile. "Hey, I got you this—" Claire turned, polite out of habit. "I didn't ask—" He pushed closer than he should have. "Come on. It's just a drink. You're too pretty to stand alone." That's when Vincent moved. He appeared beside Claire so fast the guy didn't even notice where he came from. Vincent took the drink from the man's hand and placed it back on the bar calmly. "Walk away." The man blinked. "Who are you?" Vincent's answer was quiet and deadly simple. "Someone you don't want to know." The guy gave a nervous laugh. "Relax. I'm just talking." Vincent leaned in slightly, just enough to make the man feel the weight of him. "I said, walk away." The man's smile died. He looked at Claire like he expected her to enjoy being fought over. Claire didn't look entertained. She looked furious. The man backed up, hands raised. "Okay, damn." He disappeared into the crowd. Claire turned on Vincent. "Are you insane?" Vincent stayed calm. He was bothering you. I can handle myself. I noticed. Claire's friend appeared beside them, alarmed. Claire, do you want to leave? Claire inhaled slowly, staring at Vincent like she was choosing words so she wouldn't explode. Then she said clearly, so he'd hear every syllable. You embarrassed me. Vincent's brow lifted. I embarrassed you? Claire gestured around them. Everyone is watching. I'm not your trophy. I'm not your property. And you're acting like I'm something you own. Vincent's stomach turned, because that was exactly what he looked like. A powerful man having a jealous meltdown in public. Claire stepped back. I'm leaving. Vincent moved instinctively, one step with her. She noticed and let out a humorless laugh. Don't. He stopped. His hand clenched and then loosened. She was right. He couldn't keep doing this. Claire turned and walked toward the exit with her friend, fast and determined. People made room because her energy was pure storm. Vincent stood still for half a second, forcing himself to decide. Then his body chose for him. He gave a small gesture. His guards followed. And 2 seconds later, Vincent followed too. Not on top of her. Not grabbing her. Just close enough that any man nearby would feel it. She's not available. Claire pushed through the front doors like she was escaping a fire. Cold air hit her skin. The red dress looked even brighter under the street lights. She moved quickly toward the valet area without looking back, but Vincent saw the tension in her shoulders. She was truly angry. Her friend tried to speak softly, but Claire didn't seem to hear. She grabbed her phone and started typing, calling a rideshare most likely. Vincent stopped a few steps away, his guards spread out naturally, quiet and controlled. Claire finally turned. The moment she saw the perimeter, big men standing too close, alert and ready, she snapped, Are you seriously doing this? Vincent stepped forward, voice firm. It's not safe. Claire laughed, loud and unbelieving. Not safe? Vincent, you're the only thing making this unsafe right now. His jaw tightened. Get in the car. I'll take you home. Claire pointed at him, her hand shaking with anger. I'm not getting into your car. Claire, don't say my name like that. She cut him off. Vincent stopped. For 1 second he forgot the traffic, the cold, the attention. He only saw her, red dress, angry eyes, fearless mouth. He tried to lower his tone. I didn't mean to cause a scene. Claire's laugh was bitter. You didn't mean to, and yet you did. Her rideshare pulled up, a normal sedan. The driver looked confused by the number of men near the curb. Claire opened the door without looking at Vincent. Vincent stepped closer. One of his guards moved too, ready for instructions, ready for trouble. Claire paused before getting in. She looked back over her shoulder, her gaze sharp. If you follow me, I swear to God, I'll quit. The words hit Vincent like a silent punch. Claire got into the car. The door shut. The sedan drove away. Vincent stood on the sidewalk with cold air biting his face and a hot shame rising in his chest. Not because he'd been rejected, because he'd made a public scene out of jealousy for a woman he didn't have the right to claim. He closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, one of his men asked quietly, Boss? Vincent stared at the empty road where her car had vanished. He knew he'd crossed the line. And he knew that tomorrow morning he would have to face Claire in the office like nothing happened. But nothing inside him felt normal. He spoke with tight control. Follow her. From a distance. No contact. The guard hesitated. She said she'll quit. Vincent's jaw flexed again. I said from a distance, he repeated, cold. As the men moved, Vincent stayed there 1 more second, staring at the space she left behind. Claire was probably shaking in that car, anger, adrenaline, maybe something else she refused to name. And Vincent realized something humiliating and simple. He had lost control, and the worst part was, he wanted to lose it again. He got into his own car. His phone vibrated with a message from his team. She's on the highway, heading downtown. Vincent stared at the screen, and one question locked into his mind, clear and impossible to ignore. If Claire truly wanted to disappear from his life, could she? Or was she about to learn that when Vincent DeLuca wanted something, he didn't accept losing? And worse, had he already lost before he even tried to win? Vincent DeLuca did not sleep. He lay on his bed staring at the ceiling of his penthouse while the city lights slipped through the glass walls, blinking like they were mocking him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same image. Red, sequins, Claire. The way she had looked at him when she said she wasn't his property. The way her voice didn't shake. The way she had walked away without asking permission, without looking back. That was what stayed with him. Not the club. Not the men he had removed. Not the scene. Her independence. By the time morning came, Vincent was already dressed, perfectly composed, as if nothing had happened. The man in the mirror looked controlled, powerful, untouchable. Inside, he felt exposed. He arrived at the office earlier than usual. The building was quiet, polished, and cold. His men nodded respectfully as he passed, but Vincent barely noticed them. His focus was fixed on one thing: the door to Claire Bennett's office. Her desk was empty. That should have been normal. She was rarely late, but she wasn't early either. Still, the sight of that empty chair twisted something uncomfortable in his chest. Had she quit? The thought annoyed him more than it should have. Vincent went into his office and shut the door. He checked emails, reviewed reports, signed documents. Everything moved smoothly, efficiently. And yet, every few minutes, his eyes went to the glass wall that separated his office from hers. At exactly 8:32 a.m., the elevator doors opened. Claire walked out. She looked flawless. Hair pulled back neatly, makeup subtle, a fitted navy blouse tucked into a pencil skirt, heels clicking calmly against the marble floor. No red, no sequins, no fire. Professional, distant, controlled. She didn't look at him. She walked straight to her desk, set her bag down, turned on her computer, and sat like nothing had happened the night before. That irritated him more than anger would have. Vincent waited. 1 minute, 2. She didn't come into his office. She didn't hesitate. She didn't glance his way. Finally, he stood. He walked out of his office and stopped by her desk, close enough for her to feel his presence, but not close enough to invade her space. "Good morning," he said. Claire didn't jump. She didn't freeze. She simply looked up at him, calm and neutral. "Good morning," she replied. Her voice was steady, polite, empty. Vincent didn't like it. He rested a hand on the edge of her desk. "You're early." She nodded once. "Busy day." That was it. No sarcasm. No tension. No mention of the club. Vincent watched her for a moment, searching her face for something. Anger, embarrassment, anything. He found nothing. It felt like she had put him in a box labeled irrelevant. "Do you have the numbers from Chicago?" he asked. "Yes," she said immediately. "They're in your inbox. I added notes about the timeline." Of course she had. Vincent nodded and turned away, irritation tightening his jaw. Inside his office, he shut the door harder than necessary. She was punishing him, not loudly, not dramatically, professionally. That was far worse. Mid-morning passed in silence. Meetings, calls, decisions. Vincent handled everything like usual, but his attention drifted constantly back to Claire's desk. She didn't look at him. At noon, she stood and grabbed her bag. "I'm taking lunch," she said, not asking. Vincent looked up. "You usually eat here?" "I have plans," she replied. Plans. The word echoed unpleasantly in his head. "With who?" he asked before he could stop himself. Claire paused. Slowly, she turned back to him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes sharpened just slightly. "With someone," she said. "Is that a problem?" Vincent knew the correct answer. "No." She nodded once and walked out. Vincent stayed still long after the elevator doors closed. He didn't like this feeling. The lack of control, the uncertainty. Claire had always been predictable at work, reliable, present. Now she was deliberately distant. When she returned from lunch, she was relaxed, not smiling, but lighter, like someone who had just spent time where she wanted to be. Vincent noticed everything. The way she checked her phone once and smiled faintly before putting it away. The way she hummed softly while organizing files. The way she didn't once look in his direction. It was late afternoon when Vincent finally broke. "Claire," he called. She looked up. "Yes?" "Come in." She stood and walked into his office without hesitation. No fear, no softness, just business. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. She sat. "What can I help you with?" she asked. Vincent folded his hands. He had rehearsed this. Apology, explanation, something controlled. Instead, what came out was simpler. "You're angry." Claire didn't deny it. She didn't confirm it either. "I'm professional," she said. "There's a difference." "That's not an answer." "It is," she replied calmly. "You embarrassed me. I made that clear. Today I'm doing my job." Vincent leaned back slightly. "And tomorrow?" Claire met his gaze. "That depends on whether last night happens again." "It won't," he said quickly. She raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" Vincent hesitated for half a second. "I crossed a line," he admitted. "I shouldn't have interfered." Claire studied him, silent. "You didn't interfere," she said. "You controlled." The word landed heavily. "I didn't mean to." "That doesn't change what it was." Vincent nodded once. "I'm aware." The room was quiet. Not awkward. Heavy. Claire stood. "If that's all?" Vincent watched her rise, watched the distance return. "There's one more thing," he said. She paused, hand on the door. "Yes?" "You have plans tonight," he said. Claire turned slowly. "Yes." "With the same someone?" She smiled faintly. "Does it matter?" "It does to me," he said honestly. Silence stretched between them. Then Claire surprised him. "You don't get to be jealous," she said softly. "You didn't earn that." She left. Vincent sat there long after she was gone. That evening he stood at the window of his office watching the city shift into night. His phone buzzed. A message from security. She left the building. Got into a black SUV, not ours. Vincent's jaw tightened. He stared at the screen, then at the city below. Claire Bennett was moving further out of his reach by the hour. And the worst part? He didn't want to pull her back with power. He wanted her to choose him. As the sun disappeared behind the skyline, Vincent realized something he hadn't expected. The scandal hadn't ended at the club. It had only changed shape. And whatever Claire was stepping into next. He wasn't sure he was ready to watch it happen. Vincent DeLuca had built his life on control. Control of deals, control of timing, control of people, even control of silence. What he did not have, what he had never needed before, was control over the way Claire Bennett was slowly slipping out of his reach. The black SUV didn't belong to him. That fact alone bothered him more than it should have. He stood at the window long after his office lights dimmed, watching the city glow beneath him, replaying the moment she had left. The calm in her walk, the absence of hesitation, the certainty that she had somewhere she wanted to be, and someone who wasn't him. That thought followed him home. By the time Vincent reached his penthouse, the city felt unusually loud. He poured himself a drink and didn't touch it. His phone buzzed again. Security. She arrived safely. Restaurant downtown. Private. Vincent stared at the message. Private. He closed his eyes briefly and let out a slow breath. He had told himself he wouldn't interfere again. He meant it. This wasn't about ownership. This was about something else. Something far more dangerous. He cared. And caring made him reckless. The next morning, Claire arrived at work exactly on time. Not early, not late, balanced. She greeted the receptionist, organized her desk, reviewed the day's schedule with perfect efficiency. From the outside, nothing had changed. From Vincent's perspective, everything had. She was more distant than before. Not cold, controlled. Polite without warmth. Professional without softness. She no longer lingered when she spoke to him. She no longer filled silence. It was like she had decided to remove herself emotionally while staying physically present. Vincent hated how much that worked on him. Mid-morning, she stepped into his office with a folder. "These need your approval," she said. He took the folder but didn't open it. "You had dinner last night," he said. Claire's expression didn't shift. "Yes." "Did you enjoy it?" She paused, clearly not expecting the question. Then she answered honestly, "Yes." The word hit him harder than he expected. "I'm glad," he said, though it cost him effort. She nodded once. "Anything else?" Vincent leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You didn't ask who I was with last night." Claire tilted her head slightly. "I assumed you weren't alone." There was no bitterness in her tone, no accusation, just fact. Vincent felt something tighten in his chest. "Would it bother you if I was?" he asked. Claire met his eyes steadily. "It's not my place." That was the problem. He wanted it to be. That afternoon, a subtle shift happened. Vincent began to notice the way Claire interacted with other people. Not flirtatious, not inviting, just open. She laughed during a call with a client. She accepted a compliment from a colleague without deflecting it. She smiled at someone passing by in the hallway. None of it meant anything. And yet it meant everything. By early evening, Vincent made a decision he didn't fully understand himself. He walked out of his office as Claire was packing up. "Walk with me," he said. She looked surprised. "Where?" "Outside, 5 minutes." She hesitated, then nodded. 5. They walked side by side toward the building's private terrace. The city breeze was light, the sky shifting into gold and blue. Neither of them spoke at first. Vincent broke the silence. "I've been thinking about the club." Claire kept her eyes forward. "I assumed you would." "I was wrong," he said. She stopped walking. He stopped too. She turned to face him. "About what?" "About you," he answered simply. Claire studied him, arms crossed lightly. Not defensively, but protectively. "I don't need apologies," she said. "I need clarity." Vincent nodded. "Then I'll be clear." He took a breath. "I don't like the idea of someone else looking at you." The honesty surprised even him. Claire didn't respond immediately. "That's not your decision," she said finally. "I know." "Then why say it?" "Because it's true." She searched his face for manipulation. Found none. "That sounds like jealousy," she said quietly. "It is." The word sat between them. Claire exhaled slowly. "That's dangerous territory." "For me," he agreed. She shook her head slightly. "You don't get jealous, Vincent. You control outcomes." "Not this one." That was the first crack. They stood there, city humming around them, tension thick, but not hostile. "Why me?" she asked. Vincent didn't answer right away. "You don't flirt," she continued. "You don't chase. You don't lose control. And suddenly I'm the problem?" "You're not a problem," he said. "You're a disruption." She let out a quiet laugh. "That's not romantic." He smiled faintly. "I'm not practicing." She turned away, resting her hands on the railing. "You scare me a little," she admitted. "I know. Not because you're powerful," she added. "Because you don't pretend." Vincent stepped closer, but not too close. "I don't want to scare you." "Then stop watching me like I'm something you might lose." He looked at her. "What if I already have?" Claire turned back to him sharply. The moment stretched, then she stepped back. "This is why lines exist," she said. "You're crossing them." "Tell me where they are," he replied. She hesitated. "That's the problem. They keep moving." She left the terrace without another word. That night, Claire didn't go home. She went to a small dinner with friends, laughed more than usual. Let herself relax. But Vincent's words stayed with her. "I don't like the idea of someone else looking at you." It wasn't possessive. It was vulnerable. That unsettled her more than his control ever had. The next day, things shifted again. Vincent was quieter, more observant. He didn't interrupt, didn't comment, didn't ask where she was going or who she was with. He gave her space, and somehow that pulled her closer. By late afternoon, she found herself standing in his office doorway without planning to. "Yes?" he asked, looking up. "I'm leaving early," she said. "Okay." "I don't have plans," she added, unsure why. He looked at her carefully. "Thank you for telling me." She nodded, then turned to go. "Claire," he called. She stopped. "I don't want to control you," he said. "I want to understand you." She didn't turn around. "That's harder," she said. "Yes," he agreed. She left. That evening, Vincent didn't follow, didn't ask for updates, didn't call, and that absence was louder than any gesture he'd made before. When Claire arrived home, she checked her phone twice. Nothing. She told herself she was relieved. She wasn't. The following morning, Vincent surprised her. He wasn't in the office. His desk was empty, his schedule cleared. Claire frowned, unsettled. By noon, she received a message. "Vincent, dinner tonight. Your choice, no pressure." She stared at the screen. No orders, no assumptions, just an invitation. She didn't answer right away. She finished her workday, took her time, thought about boundaries, about risk, about the way her heart reacted when he stopped trying to control and started trying to choose. At 6:42 p.m., she replied, "Claire, 1 hour, public place." Vincent's response came immediately. "Vincent." Of course. When she arrived at the restaurant, he was already there, not imposing, not guarded. Just a man waiting. He stood when he saw her, smiled, not confident, not controlled, nervous. She noticed. They sat, ordered. Silence lingered, not uncomfortable, just charged. Vincent broke it softly. "I don't want to own you." Claire met his gaze. "I want to choose you," he continued, "and know if you'd ever choose me back." Her breath caught. She hadn't expected that. That night didn't end with a kiss. It ended with something more dangerous. Hope. And as Claire walked away later, heart racing, one thought stayed with her. If she took one more step toward Vincent DeLuca, there would be no going back. And Vincent, watching her leave, already knew the hardest part wouldn't be winning her. It would be waiting to see if she'd stay. Claire didn't sleep much after that dinner. It wasn't because anything dramatic happened. There was no scene, no public moment, no scandal, no kiss she could blame for making her feel reckless. That was the problem. Nothing happened, and yet everything changed. Vincent DeLuca had looked at her across a quiet table and said he didn't want to own her. He wanted to choose her. He wanted to know if she could ever choose him back. He hadn't begged. He hadn't played games. He hadn't tried to corner her into a decision. He had simply admitted the truth. Claire had walked away with her heart beating faster than it should have for a man she technically wasn't supposed to want. And the next morning, when she stepped out of the elevator into the office, she felt it before she even saw him. The air was calmer, not cold, not tense, calmer. Vincent was already there, standing by the conference room with a small group of executives. Dark suit, open collar, no tie, his usual look of a man who could turn a conversation into a decision without raising his voice. But his eyes found Claire the second she appeared. He didn't hold her gaze too long. He didn't call her over. He didn't show anything that would make someone suspicious. Still, Claire felt it, a subtle warmth, a silent acknowledgement that he saw her. She set her bag on her desk, logged in, and opened the day's schedule. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed, a message from Vincent. "Vincent. Good morning. Thank you for last night." Claire stared at it. No pressure, no demand for a response, just appreciation. She typed back without thinking too much. "Claire. Good morning. You behaved." A pause. Then, "Vincent. I'm learning." Claire felt the corners of her mouth lift before she could stop it. She put her phone down and forced herself back into work. But she kept glancing at it anyway. Because the truth was simple. She didn't know how to handle a Vincent DeLuca who was trying to be gentle. By mid-morning, the office was in motion. Calls, meetings, documents. Claire moved through it all smoothly, the way she always did. But today, Something felt different in the smallest ways. Vincent didn't call her into his office just to fill silence. He didn't ask personal questions he had no right to ask. He didn't linger near her desk. He let her breathe. That should have made her feel safe. Instead, it made her curious. At 10:40 a.m., Vincent stepped out of his office and approached her desk with a folder in hand. "Do you have 5 minutes?" he asked, voice low. Claire nodded. "For work?" His mouth tilted slightly. "Always." She stood and followed him into his office. He didn't close the door. Claire noticed that immediately. He sat behind his desk and pushed the folder toward her. "I want your opinion." Claire blinked. "You want my opinion on a deal?" Vincent's expression stayed calm, but something softened in his eyes. "I always want your opinion. I just don't always say it." Claire opened the folder, scanning the numbers. Her focus shifted naturally into professional mode. She pointed out 2 risks and 1 opportunity in under a minute, precise and clear. Vincent listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded. "That's what I thought." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Then why ask?" "Because when you say it," he replied, "it becomes real." The words were simple, not poetic, but they hit her anyway. Claire forced her attention back to the folder. "You're getting better at this." "At what?" Vincent asked. She looked up. "At treating me like a person and not a function." Vincent held her gaze. No defensive reaction, no ego. "I didn't realize I was doing that," he admitted. Claire closed the folder. "You were." Vincent nodded once. "Then I'm glad you're telling me now." A small silence settled between them. Claire stood. "If that's all—" Vincent's voice stopped her. "It's not." She paused, her hand on the chair back, not turning yet. "I meant what I said last night," he continued. "And I'm not going to push you. But I need you to know something." Claire turned slowly. "What?" Vincent leaned back slightly, like he was choosing his words carefully. "I don't want to be the kind of man you have to protect yourself from." Claire stared at him. That sentence was unexpected, not dramatic, not rehearsed, just honest. "I'm not protecting myself from you," she said quietly. Vincent's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, more like he was trying to understand. "Then what are you doing?" Claire exhaled. "I'm protecting my life." Vincent didn't answer right away. Claire continued, voice steady. "I built my career by being good at my job, by being reliable, by not letting distractions, or men, define what people think I earned." Vincent's gaze dropped to the desk for a moment. When he looked back up, his voice was softer. "And you think I would take that from you?" Claire shrugged slightly. "I think your world takes things, even when it doesn't mean to." Vincent held that quiet. Then he said, "Tell me how to do this right." Claire's throat tightened slightly, because she didn't know the answer. And worse, she realized she wanted to find out. She left his office with her heart beating too fast for a conversation that had been calm and professional. Around lunchtime, Claire found herself doing something she hadn't done in a long time. She was checking her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Not because she wasn't confident, she was. Because suddenly she cared about being seen. She wore a fitted black dress today, not too short, not too tight, but enough to show her shape in a way that felt intentional. Her hair was sleek, her lipstick subtle. When she returned to her desk, she caught Vincent's eyes on her. Just for a second. His gaze held a flicker of heat. Then he looked away. Claire's pulse jumped. She pretended she didn't notice. At 2 p.m., Claire had to accompany Vincent to an off-site meeting. Nothing unusual. It was a corporate partnership meeting downtown, high-end offices, polished smiles, expensive chairs. Vincent met her at the elevator. He looked at her like he wanted to say something, then decided not to. Claire raised an eyebrow. "What?" Vincent's mouth twitched. "Nothing." Claire stepped closer because she was brave enough to push. "That's not true." Vincent glanced at her lips, then back to her eyes. "I like your dress," he said quietly. Claire blinked. That simple sentence, no control, no jealousy, no accusation, felt more intimate than anything else he'd said. "Thank you," she replied, keeping her voice calm. Vincent nodded once, like he was proud of himself for saying it right. They got into the elevator. As the doors closed, a man in a suit stepped in at the last second. He smiled politely and nodded at them. Normal. Then his eyes moved to Claire, lingering a beat longer than normal. Not creepy, just appreciative. Vincent noticed. Claire noticed Vincent noticing. She waited. Vincent didn't move, didn't tense, didn't signal security. He simply stood, hands behind his back, calm. The man glanced again at Claire as the elevator descended. Claire didn't respond. She stared at the floor number display, neutral. When the doors opened, the man stepped out ahead of them. Vincent exhaled softly. Claire turned her head slightly. "You survived." Vincent's eyes flicked to her. "Barely." She let out a small laugh. "Good." He looked relieved that she laughed. They walked to the car, Vincent's driver opening the door. The ride downtown was quiet at first, not awkward, comfortable. Then Vincent spoke softly. "I almost did it again." Claire turned her head. "Did what?" "Pulled him away," Vincent admitted. Claire studied his profile. "Why didn't you?" Vincent's jaw flexed slightly. "Because you told me not to." Claire's chest warmed unexpectedly. "That's new," she said. Vincent glanced at her. "I'm trying to be the man you could actually choose." Claire looked out the window, but her smile was real this time. Small, private. The meeting went smoothly. Claire handled details. Vincent handled the room. They worked like they always had. Seamless, efficient, professional. But today, the energy between them made it different. Vincent's hand brushed her elbow once when he moved behind her chair. Not grabbing, not guiding. Just an accidental touch. Claire's skin reacted like it had been waiting. She didn't pull away. That was the part that scared her. After the meeting, they walked out together. The city was bright, the afternoon sun reflecting off glass buildings. Vincent slowed slightly. "Do you want coffee?" Claire hesitated. "Coffee like coffee?" Vincent's mouth lifted. "Yes, coffee like coffee." Claire laughed under her breath. "I have work." Vincent looked at her. "So do I." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. 10 minutes. Vincent looked almost pleased. They walked into a nearby cafe, not flashy, not loud, just warm and modern. The smell of espresso and baked sugar filled the air. People sat with laptops, couples talked quietly, baristas moved fast. Vincent stood in line with Claire, which felt strange. In his world, people brought him things. Here, he waited like everyone else. A woman behind the counter looked at Vincent, then at Claire, and smiled. "What can I get you?" Vincent glanced at Claire. "What do you want?" Claire blinked. "You're asking me?" Vincent's eyes stayed on hers. "Yes." Claire ordered a latte. Vincent ordered black coffee. When they sat at a small table by the window, it felt too normal. That was the dangerous part. Claire wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "This is weird." Vincent's mouth tilted. "In a bad way?" Claire shook her head slowly. "In a way that makes it feel real." Vincent didn't joke this time. "It is real." Claire's throat tightened slightly. She looked out the window. "I don't know what you want from me." Vincent leaned forward slightly. "I want you to stop thinking you have to fight me." Claire looked back at him. "I'm not fighting you." "Yes, you are," he said gently. "You're fighting what you feel." Claire's eyes narrowed. "What do I feel?" Vincent held her gaze. "You tell me." Claire stared at him in silence, because the answer was obvious. She felt pulled. She felt seen. She felt wanted in a way that wasn't just physical, though the physical was there too, loud and alive under her skin. But she refused to be the kind of woman who threw her life away for a man, no matter how powerful or how attractive he was. "I feel cautious," she said finally. Vincent nodded. "Good." Claire blinked, surprised. "Good?" Vincent's voice stayed calm. Yes. If you weren't cautious, you wouldn't be you. Claire studied him. You're not trying to convince me. Vincent exhaled softly. I'm trying to deserve you. The words landed in her chest. Claire looked down at her cup, then back up. What happens if I say no? Vincent didn't flinch. He answered immediately. Then I will respect it. Claire watched him carefully. No pause, no hidden threat, no arrogance. He meant it. And that terrified her more than his control. Because it meant she couldn't blame him if she fell. The 10 minutes stretched into 20. Claire caught herself smiling more than she wanted to. Vincent didn't fill the silence with arrogance. He didn't talk about power. He didn't mention danger. He asked her about her day, her work, the things she liked, the books she read, the places she wanted to visit. Normal questions. And Claire realized she didn't know him like this. She knew Vincent DeLuca as a boss, a force, a man who could change outcomes with a single call. But this Vincent, quiet, attentive, almost careful, felt like someone else. A man. When they returned to the car, the driver opened the door. Claire slid in first. Vincent followed. As the door closed, their shoulders brushed. It was nothing. It felt like everything. They arrived back at the office by late afternoon. Claire went straight to her desk, forcing herself into focus again. Vincent disappeared into his office. A few minutes later, Claire's phone buzzed. Vincent. Thank you for coffee. Claire stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered. Then she typed. Claire. You're welcome. You didn't embarrass me this time. Vincent replied quickly. Vincent. I don't want to embarrass you ever again. Claire felt a warmth rise in her chest. She put her phone down and looked at her computer screen as if it held the secret to keeping her life under control. It didn't. At 5:30 p.m., the office began to empty. Claire finished her last tasks, double-checked the schedule for tomorrow, and stood to leave. She grabbed her bag. Then she paused. Because Vincent's door opened. He stepped out, jacket over his arm, sleeves slightly rolled up like he'd been working intensely. He walked toward her desk, slower than usual, like he was choosing a moment. Can we talk? He asked. Claire's heart sped up immediately. We talked, she replied, keeping her tone light. Vincent's eyes held hers. Not about this. Claire swallowed. About what? Vincent stopped a few feet away. Close enough to feel him, not close enough to touch. About the line, he said. Claire's breath caught slightly. Vincent continued, voice low. I know you're protecting your life. I respect it. But I need to tell you something. Claire forced herself to stay calm. Tell me. Vincent's jaw tightened, like this wasn't easy for him. I don't want to be your boss when I'm with you, he said. I want to be just Vincent. Claire stared at him. The room felt quiet, like the building itself was holding its breath. And if I can't do that, Vincent added, then I don't deserve your yes. Claire's throat tightened again, because he wasn't offering control, he was offering humility. Claire took a step closer before she realized she was moving. Vincent, she said softly. He held still. Claire looked up into his face, seeing a flicker of tension in his eyes. Hope mixed with fear, like he didn't know what she was about to do. You're making this harder, she whispered. Vincent's mouth moved slightly, like he almost smiled. Good, Claire blinked. Good? Vincent leaned in a fraction, voice even lower. Because if it's hard, it means it matters. Claire inhaled slowly. Her fingers tightened on her bag strap. She wanted to reach out. She didn't. Not yet. Instead, she asked the one question that had been building inside her since the club. Why did you really lose control that night? She asked. Vincent's eyes didn't leave hers. Because you looked like someone I could lose in 1 second. Claire's chest tightened. Vincent continued, quieter now. And because for the first time in a long time, the idea of losing something scared me. Claire stared at him, silent. Vincent took a slow breath like he was stepping into honesty without armor. I don't want you because you're beautiful, he said. I want you because you're you, and you being beautiful just makes it harder to pretend I don't want you. Claire's lips parted slightly. The air between them turned electric. Her body reacted before her mind could argue. Vincent's gaze dropped to her mouth. Claire noticed. Her breath shook, barely. Vincent stayed still, holding himself back with visible effort. He wasn't forcing. He was waiting, and that waiting made Claire want to give. She swallowed. "I'm not easy." Vincent's mouth tilted slightly. "I noticed." Claire's eyes sharpened. "And you still want this?" Vincent answered instantly. "Yes." Claire's heart pounded. She took another step closer. Now there was barely space between them. Vincent's hand lifted slightly, then stopped, hovering, like he wouldn't touch her unless she made it clear. Claire stared at his hand, then at his eyes. "You're asking permission," she murmured. Vincent nodded once. "Always." Claire let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and a surrender combined. She lifted her hand and placed it lightly on his chest, over his shirt. Vincent didn't move. But Claire felt his body react, muscle tightening, breath catching. Her palm was warm against him, and in that second, the world narrowed. Just the two of them. Claire looked up. "This is dangerous." Vincent's voice was rougher now. "I know." Claire's fingers curled slightly in his shirt. "I don't want to ruin my life." Vincent leaned in a fraction. "Then don't ruin it. Let me add to it." Claire's breath hitched. Her eyes dropped to his mouth. Vincent didn't close the distance. He waited. Claire tilted her chin upward, barely. That was all it took. Vincent leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to stop it. Claire didn't. His lips met hers softly. No aggression, no force, just pressure and warmth and a careful intimacy that made Claire's knees feel slightly unsteady. It wasn't a wild kiss. It was worse. It felt like agreement. Vincent pulled back first, just enough to look at her. His eyes were dark, controlled, but the control looked like work now. Claire's lips parted slightly, her breath uneven. Vincent's voice came out low. "Was that okay?" Claire stared at him, stunned by the question, by the care. Then she nodded once. "Yes." Vincent's exhale sounded like relief. He didn't kiss her again. He just rested his forehead against hers for a moment. Brief, intimate, almost private. Then he stepped back. Claire blinked, suddenly aware they were still in the office. Still in the building. Still in a world full of rules. Vincent straightened his posture, putting the mask back on, but not fully. "Go home," he said gently. "Get some rest." Claire nodded, still trying to breathe normally. She walked toward the elevator, her steps steady, but her heart racing. At the doors, she turned back. Vincent was still standing there, watching her like he wanted to memorize her. Claire held his gaze for a beat. Then the doors closed. Inside the elevator, Claire pressed her fingers lightly to her lips, as if checking whether that kiss was real. It was, and it had changed everything. When she got home, she placed her bag on the counter and stood still in the quiet. She told herself she could handle this, that she could be smart, that she could keep control. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Vincent. "Vincent, I won't cross your line, but I need you to know I'm not walking away either." Claire stared at the screen. Not walking away. Her heart flipped. She didn't answer immediately. She walked to her bedroom window and looked out at the city. She had invited danger into her life the moment she put her hand on his chest. And now she had to decide what kind of danger it was. The next morning, Claire arrived at work earlier than usual. Not because she was eager, because she needed to see how he would act. Vincent was already there. He didn't approach her desk. He didn't send a message. He didn't make it obvious. He simply looked up once when she stepped out of the elevator. Their eyes met. And Claire felt it again, the warmth, the pull, the quiet promise. Vincent gave her a small nod, respectful, controlled. Claire returned it. Her heart was still racing. She sat at her desk and opened her schedule. At 9:07 a.m., she received a meeting request on her screen. Private appointment, 9:30 a.m. Vincent DeLuca. No details. Claire stared at it. A private appointment could be business, or it could be something else. She accepted. At 9:29 a.m., her phone buzzed again. A single message from Vincent. Vincent, I need to tell you something before you hear it from anyone else. Claire's stomach tightened. Before she hears it from anyone else? She stood slowly. Her body felt suddenly cold, because in Vincent's world, anyone else meant something bigger than gossip. It meant consequences. She walked toward his office with her pulse rising, her mind filling with possibilities she didn't like. When she reached his door, it was slightly open. She knocked once and stepped inside. Vincent stood behind his desk, not sitting this time. His expression was serious, not angry, not cold, focused. He gestured toward the chair. Claire didn't sit. "What is it?" she asked, voice steady but tight. Vincent held her gaze. Then he said the words that made her breath stop. "I'm transferring you out of this office." Claire stared at him, stunned. "What?" she whispered. Vincent's voice stayed calm. "You'll keep your salary, you'll keep your position, but you won't be my assistant anymore." Claire's heart pounded harder. "You're firing me?" she asked sharply. Vincent shook his head immediately. "No." "Then why would you?" "Because I won't touch you and sign papers with you in the same breath," he said, voice low. "Because if this becomes real, I want it to be clean." Claire's throat tightened painfully. Vincent took a breath. "I'm doing this to protect you." Claire's eyes flashed. "I don't need protection." Vincent's gaze didn't waver. "Then call it respect." Claire stared at him, torn between anger and something dangerously close to tenderness. "You decided this without me," she said. Vincent nodded once, accepting the hit. "Yes, and I'm sorry." Claire's chest rose with a sharp inhale. "You said you wouldn't control." "I'm not controlling you," Vincent said quickly. "I'm removing my power from the situation." Claire froze, removing his power. That was a move she didn't expect, and it meant he was serious. Vincent's voice softened. "I'm telling you first because I didn't want you blindsided. HR will send the formal notice later today." Claire's mind raced. A promotion? A transfer? A clean break? Or a way to push her away before she could choose? She swallowed hard. "And what if I don't want to be transferred?" Vincent's eyes held hers with a quiet intensity. "Then tell me." Claire opened her mouth. And then his desk phone rang. Vincent's gaze flicked to it. The caller ID lit up. His expression tightened slightly. Claire saw the name on the screen. A woman's name. Vincent didn't answer immediately. Claire's stomach dropped, because whatever he needed to tell her before she heard it from anyone else suddenly felt a lot more complicated. Vincent picked up the phone. "Speak," he said. His jaw tightened as he listened. Claire watched his face change, subtle, but clear. He glanced at her once, then back to the window, like he was calculating. When he finally spoke again, his voice was calm, but the calm was sharp. "No, not today." A pause. Then Vincent said slowly, as if choosing each word for impact, "Because if you show up here, you'll meet the woman I'm not willing to lose." Claire's breath caught. Vincent hung up. Silence slammed into the room. Claire stared at him, heart pounding, mind spinning. Vincent turned back to her, eyes intense. "I told you I needed to tell you something," he said quietly. "Now you know why." Claire's voice came out thin. "Who was that?" Vincent stepped closer, careful, controlled, and his answer landed like a spark in dry air. "My fiancé." Claire went completely still. The word echoed in her head like a siren. Fiancé. And suddenly, the kiss, the coffee, the gentleness, the promise, everything collided with a reality she hadn't seen coming. Vincent watched her face, and his voice dropped even lower. "And she's coming back to the city today." Claire's chest tightened, and the room seemed to tilt slightly under her feet. Not because of danger, because of heartbreak she didn't even know she was vulnerable to. And Vincent's eyes held hers as if he was bracing for the one thing he couldn't control: Claire's decision. Claire left Vincent's office with her head held high. She didn't run. She didn't rush. She didn't let anyone see the crack forming inside her chest. But the moment the elevator doors closed, her breath broke. Fiancé. The word echoed in her mind like it had weight, like it changed the shape of every moment she and Vincent had shared over the last few days. The coffee, the careful respect, the kiss that had felt like a promise instead of a mistake. She stared at the reflection of herself in the elevator mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She looked composed. She felt anything but. By the time she reached her apartment, Claire had decided two things. First, she would not be the woman who waited quietly while a powerful man figured out his personal life. Second, she would not let Vincent DeLuca turn her into a secret. That night she ignored his message. There was only one, sent an hour after she left. Vincent. I should have told you sooner. Please let me explain. She read it. Then she set her phone down face up on the counter and walked away. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered his mouth against hers, the way he had asked for permission, the care in his voice when he said he didn't want to own her. That was the cruelest part. He hadn't lied with his behavior. He had just failed to tell the whole truth. The next morning, Claire arrived at work early again, earlier than usual, earlier than she needed to be. She needed to feel grounded. Vincent was already there. He stood when he saw her, instinctively, like he always did. But this time, there was no soft smile, no teasing remark, just tension. Claire, he said quietly. She stopped a few feet away. We need to be clear. He nodded. Yes. She didn't sit. She didn't move closer. You're engaged, she said, not accusing, stating fact. Yes, Vincent replied. I was. The word caught her attention. Was. She crossed her arms. You don't casually forget to mention a fiancé. I didn't forget, he said. I avoided it. Claire's jaw tightened. That's worse. Vincent didn't argue. He accepted it. You're right, he said. And I won't defend it. She watched him carefully, then explain. Vincent took a breath. The kind of breath someone takes before saying something that might cost them everything. It's been over for months, he said. On paper, it still exists. In reality, it doesn't. Claire didn't relax. That doesn't make it disappear. No, he agreed. It makes it unfinished. She held his gaze, and I walked into the middle of it. Vincent shook his head immediately. You didn't walk into anything. I did. That surprised her. Why now? She asked. Why me? Vincent didn't hesitate. Because with you, I stopped pretending, he said. And that forced me to confront everything I'd been delaying. Claire felt the pull again, that dangerous sincerity. She hated that part of herself that still wanted to believe him. I don't want drama, she said. I don't want triangles. I don't want to be the woman everyone whispers about. You won't be, Vincent said firmly. I won't allow that. She raised an eyebrow. Careful. He corrected himself immediately. I won't let it happen. Better. He stepped back, creating space on purpose. I asked HR to process your transfer, he continued. Not to push you away, to remove the imbalance. Claire searched his face. And if I say no? Then I accept it, he said. And I stepped back. Her heart stumbled. That wasn't the answer of a man trying to trap her. It was the answer of a man trying to earn something. I need time, she said. You have it. I don't want you contacting me outside of work, she added. Not until I decide. Vincent nodded once. Okay. And your fiancé? His jaw tightened slightly. She's arriving today. I plan to end it, cleanly. Claire studied him. You should have done that before kissing me. Yes, he said simply. I failed there. She appreciated that he didn't soften it. Then this is what's going to happen, Claire said. You fix your life, completely, without me involved. And then, maybe, we talk. Vincent met her eyes. And if you decide you don't want to talk, then you respect it. I will, he said without pause. Claire nodded once. That was the first time she believed him. The rest of the day passed slowly. Claire focused on work, on details, on things that stayed within her control. Vincent kept his distance exactly as promised. No messages, no looks that lingered too long. By evening, she was exhausted. She left the building and walked instead of calling a ride. The city air helped her think. She was halfway down the block when a familiar voice stopped her. "Claire?" She turned. A woman stood a few feet away. Elegant, confident, calm, mid-30s. Dark hair pulled back neatly, sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Hi," the woman said. "I'm Elena." Claire's chest tightened. "I know who you are," Elena continued gently. "Vincent told me about you." That was unexpected. Claire crossed her arms, grounding herself. "Then you know this is uncomfortable." Elena nodded. "Yes, which is why I wanted to speak to you directly, woman to woman." Claire studied her. There was no hostility there, no jealousy, just resolve. "I'm ending the engagement," Elena said. "Not because of you, because it ended a long time ago." Claire blinked. "Then why show up now?" "Closure," Elena replied, "and to make sure the ending is clean." Claire felt some of the tension in her shoulders loosen. "I don't want to compete with you," Elena added, "and I don't want Vincent making you feel like you were a mistake." Claire let out a slow breath. "He didn't." "Good," Elena said. "Because you weren't." They stood there in the fading light, two women connected by a man neither wanted to fight over. "I'm not asking for anything," Elena continued. "I just wanted you to hear it from me." Claire nodded. "Thank you." Elena smiled faintly. "Take care of yourself." She walked away. Claire stood still for a moment, letting the city move around her. That night she checked her phone again. One message waited. "Vincent, I did it. I wanted you to know. No details, no pressure. Just truth." Claire stared at the screen for a long time. Then she typed back. "Claire, thank you for handling it the right way." A minute passed. Then another message appeared. "Vincent, I'll wait." Claire set the phone down, heart racing, waiting. That was new for him. 2 days passed, then 3. Vincent didn't cross a single boundary. On the 4th day, Claire knocked on his office door. He looked up, surprised, but controlled. "Yes?" She stepped inside and closed the door herself. "I've decided something," she said. Vincent stood slowly. "Okay." Claire met his eyes. "I don't want to be transferred." His breath caught slightly. "And," she added, "if we do this, we do it openly. No secrets, no power games." Vincent nodded. "Agreed. And I choose when things move forward," she said. He answered without hesitation. "Always." Claire took a step closer. "You hurt me," she said softly. "I know," Vincent replied. "And I won't waste the chance you're giving me." She studied him for a long second. Then she smiled, just a little. "Take me to dinner," she said. "A real one." Vincent's smile was slow and genuine. "Tonight?" "Yes." He extended his hand, not touching her yet, asking. Claire placed her hand in his. This time she didn't pull away. And as they walked out of the office side by side, something shifted between them. Not control, not fear, choice. And both of them knew. The hardest part was over. Now came the part where love actually began. Dinner didn't feel like a test. That surprised Claire. She had expected tension, expectation, the heavy sense that something important had to be decided by the end of the night. Instead, what she felt when Vincent opened the door of the car for her was ease, not casual, not careless, intentional. The restaurant wasn't loud or flashy. It was warm, modern, discreet, the kind of place where conversation stayed private without effort. Vincent hadn't chosen it to impress. He had chosen it because it felt safe. That mattered. They sat across from each other, a small candle between them, the city humming quietly outside the windows. Vincent didn't reach for her hand. He didn't lean in too close. He didn't rush. Claire noticed everything. "You look different," she said after a moment. Vincent lifted an eyebrow. "Good or bad?" Calm, she replied. You're usually braced. He smiled faintly. I don't feel like I need armor tonight. That honesty softened something in her chest. They talked about simple things at first, work that wasn't stressful, a movie she'd watched recently, a restaurant he liked but rarely visited because it reminded him of a different life. He listened, really listened. Claire realized she was laughing more than she had in weeks. At some point, without planning it, Vincent reached for her hand. Slow, clear, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers were warm, steady. No pressure. No claim, just connection. I meant what I said, he told her quietly. About doing this openly. Claire nodded. I know. And I won't let my world swallow you, he added. If it ever feels like it is, you tell me. She studied his face. And you'll actually listen? Yes. Not, I'll try. Yes. After dinner they walked instead of getting back into the car right away. The night air was cool, the sidewalk calm. Vincent stayed close but not possessive, matching her pace. Claire stopped near a quiet corner and turned to face him. This doesn't scare you? She asked. Letting me decide? Vincent didn't hesitate. It does. She blinked. Then why do it? Because fear isn't a reason to control someone, he said. It's a reason to trust them. Claire felt the truth of that settle deep. She stepped closer. Vincent didn't move. She lifted her hand and rested it against his chest again, the same place as before. This time he covered her hand with his. Still okay? He asked. Yes. That was all the permission he needed. The kiss this time was different. Not tentative, not rushed. It was slow, deep, intentional. A kiss that said, I'm here, more than I want. When they pulled apart, Claire rested her forehead briefly against his shoulder, breathing him in. This is new for you, she murmured. Vincent smiled against her hair. You have no idea. They didn't go home together that night. And that choice mattered too. The next weeks unfolded carefully. Not secretly, not loudly, naturally. Vincent didn't change her job or isolate her from anyone. Claire didn't reshape her life around him. They kept their routines, their independence. But they found space for each other in between. Morning coffee when schedules aligned. Late dinners when work ran long. Text messages that didn't demand immediate replies but always felt welcome. People noticed, not because they were obvious, because they were balanced. One afternoon, Claire caught a glimpse of herself reflected in the glass wall of Vincent's office while he was on a call. She was smiling without realizing it. That scared her more than the club ever had, because she wasn't guarding herself anymore. That night, as they sat in his living room with the city glowing behind them, Claire asked the question she'd been avoiding. What happens when your world pushes back? Vincent leaned back slightly, considering it. It already has. She turned to him. And I didn't budge. That made her laugh softly. That doesn't sound like you. It is now. Silence settled, comfortable and full. Vincent reached for her again, this time pulling her gently closer until she was tucked against his side. She fit there naturally, like her body had already learned the shape of him. You know I won't be easy, she said quietly. I don't want easy, he replied. I want real. Claire tilted her head to look up at him. And if this gets complicated? Vincent met her gaze. Then we talk. We don't control. We don't disappear. Her chest warmed. She leaned in and kissed him again, softer this time, slower. That night, she stayed. Not because he asked, because she chose to. Morning came quietly. Claire woke to sunlight filtering through the curtains and the steady rise and fall of Vincent's chest beneath her cheek. No panic, no regret, just warmth. Vincent stirred and smiled when he realized she was awake. Good morning, he murmured. She smiled back. Good morning. No awkwardness, no need to define what had happened. Later, as she got dressed, she paused, suddenly thoughtful. This doesn't change who I am, she said. Vincent nodded. I wouldn't want it to. And you don't get to decide things for me, she added. A faint smile. I know. She studied him. Then we're okay. He stepped closer, resting his hands lightly at her waist. We are. When they walked into the office together that day, they didn't announce anything. They didn't need to. It showed in the way Vincent listened when Claire spoke, in the way Claire didn't flinch when someone addressed him before her, in the quiet understanding between them. By the end of the week, Claire realized something that surprised her. She wasn't losing herself. She was expanding. And Vincent, watching her navigate his world without shrinking, knew something too. This wasn't a risk he needed to manage. It was a choice he needed to honor. As they stood by the window one evening, city lights stretching endlessly, Claire rested her head lightly against his shoulder. This feels solid, she said. Vincent kissed the top of her head. It is, he replied. And for the first time, neither of them felt the need to question what came next. They were already there. Claire realized she was no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop on an ordinary Tuesday. That was how she knew it had become real. No tension in her shoulders when she stepped out of the elevator. No mental checklist of what to say, what not to say, how to keep her life from being swallowed. She walked into the office like she belonged there, because she did. Not because Vincent DeLuca allowed it, because she had built it. Vincent was already at his desk when she passed his doorway. He looked up once, the way he always did now. Not an inspection, not a signal. Just a quiet, warm recognition that made her chest feel steady. Claire didn't stop. She didn't have to. She simply gave him a small nod and kept walking, the rhythm between them so natural it was almost shocking they had ever been anything else. Her day filled quickly, schedules, calls, a presentation she'd been refining for weeks. A new partnership proposal that would put the company in a stronger position by summer. It was the kind of work Claire loved. Clean strategy, clear execution, no drama. In the conference room, the leadership team sat around the table with their polished confidence. A few of them still looked at Claire like she was Vincent's assistant, even if they didn't say it out loud. That old assumption lingered in rooms like perfume. Claire didn't fight it anymore. She outperformed it. When she began speaking, the room quieted, not because Vincent was there, because Claire's voice was calm, direct, and certain. She laid out the plan in simple terms, what they could gain, what they could lose, what they needed to do first. No exaggerated language, no mystery, just clarity. One executive interrupted halfway through as if testing the edges of her authority. I'm not sure that timeline is realistic, he said, leaning back. These things take longer. Claire didn't flinch. She didn't glance at Vincent. She didn't wait for backup. It takes longer when the process is vague, she replied, still polite. This isn't vague. The timeline works if we treat each stage like a decision, not a discussion. The man blinked, surprised by her calm. Vincent said nothing. He simply watched her, and when the executive tried again, one more push, one more attempt to turn it into a debate, Claire answered with one sentence that ended it. We can be cautious and late, or we can be prepared and on time. I'm proposing prepared. Silence. Then someone nodded. Then another. When the meeting ended, people gathered their folders and stood, conversations starting up in low tones. Claire stayed seated a second longer, organizing her notes. Vincent remained in his chair, watching her with a look she'd learned to recognize. Pride. Respect. And something softer he didn't hide from her anymore. As the room emptied, Vincent finally spoke. You handled that perfectly. Claire looked up. You didn't jump in. He shrugged once. You didn't need me to. She studied him. Old Vincent would have taken his head off. Vincent's mouth tilted. Old Vincent would have tried. Claire laughed under her breath, and the sound eased something in the air. They stepped into the hallway together, their pace matched without effort. You've been quiet lately, Claire said. Vincent glanced at her. Is that a complaint? No, she replied honestly. It's different. Vincent looked ahead, choosing his words carefully. I'm learning what it feels like to be present without managing everything. Claire's eyebrows lifted. And? And it's uncomfortable, he admitted, then added, but I like who I am in it. That sentence stayed with her as she returned to her desk, because that was the core of it. Vincent wasn't acting better. He was becoming someone better, without asking her to shrink to make room for him. Later that afternoon, Claire received an email that made her pause. It was brief, formal, clean. Company update. Organizational structure. Effective immediately. She scanned quickly, then slowly reread the section that mentioned her. Claire Bennett would now lead a new executive operations function that connected strategy, scheduling, and cross-team execution. It wasn't a vanity title. It was real responsibility, real visibility. A role that would bring her into rooms she had been supporting for years, now as a decision-maker. She stared at the screen, chest tight. Not because she didn't deserve it, because she knew how easily people could assume it was because of Vincent. Claire stood and walked straight to his office. She didn't knock softly. She knocked once and stepped in. Vincent looked up, already reading her face. "You knew," Claire said. "Yes," he replied. "You didn't tell me." "No." Vincent agreed again, calm. Claire set the printed email on his desk. "Why?" Vincent's tone stayed steady. "Because I didn't want you to wonder if your yes to me was being rewarded." Claire went still. That thought didn't even... She stopped, then corrected herself honestly. "No, it did. I hated that it did." Vincent nodded once, not offended. "I hate it too." Claire crossed her arms. "So what did you do?" Vincent leaned forward slightly. "I removed myself. I didn't propose it. I didn't vote on it. I didn't influence it. I let your work speak." Claire's throat tightened. "And if people still assume—" she started. Vincent cut in gently. "Then they don't know you." Claire held his gaze, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel in a relationship with a man like Vincent DeLuca. Safety. Not the kind guarded by men in suits. The kind built by respect. That night, Vincent invited her to an event he had avoided for years. Not a business function, not a deal dinner. A private gathering at a friend's home downtown where people who knew him personally would be present. People who had no reason to flatter him. People who would look at Claire and form an opinion fast. Claire hesitated for half a second when he told her. "Do you want to go?" Vincent asked, watching her carefully. Claire forced herself to be honest. "I'm not afraid of them." Vincent's mouth twitched. "I know. I'm afraid of what it means," she admitted. Vincent stepped closer, not touching her yet. "What does it mean?" Claire held his gaze. "It means you're letting me in for real." Vincent nodded once. "Yes." Claire exhaled slowly. "Then yes, I'll go." She chose an outfit that felt like her, elegant, modern, confident. A dress that didn't need to be loud to be noticed. She wore her hair down because Vincent liked it, and she liked that. When Vincent saw her, he didn't compliment the dress first. He looked at her face. "You look steady," he said quietly. Claire raised an eyebrow. "That's your version of beautiful?" Vincent smiled, genuine. "It's my version of I'm proud." Claire's heart stumbled. In the car, Vincent reached for her hand. Slow, clear, asking without words. Claire placed her hand in his and felt the calm spread through her fingers. At the gathering, the atmosphere was warm. Laughter, low music, people talking in groups. Vincent didn't command the room here. He simply belonged in it. He introduced Claire the same way he always did now. "This is Claire." No title, no explanation, just her name. A woman approached them, friendly, curious, sharp-eyed. "So you're Claire," she said with a smile. Claire returned it. "I am." The woman looked at Vincent. "About time." Claire blinked. Vincent exhaled as if he'd been expecting that. "Don't start." The woman laughed. "I'm not starting, I'm celebrating. We've been taking bets on whether you were ever going to let someone close enough to matter." Claire looked at Vincent, amused. Vincent's jaw tightened slightly, but his eyes held a softness. You can stop betting. The woman smiled at Claire again. Good, because he needs someone who tells him no. Claire let out a quiet laugh. That won't be a problem. Vincent glanced at her, and the look was pure acceptance. Like he wasn't embarrassed by that truth. Like he needed it. Later, a man approached Vincent with a professional smile. Vincent, he said, I didn't realize you were bringing company. Vincent's expression didn't change. He simply replied calmly, I'm not. The man paused. Sorry? Vincent looked at Claire briefly, then back at the man. I'm bringing my partner. Claire felt the word settle into her like a promise. Partner. Not an accessory, not a secret, not a risk. The rest of the night flowed easily. Claire found herself laughing, talking with strangers, enjoying the simple freedom of being openly chosen without being claimed. When they stepped onto the balcony for air, the city stretched out in lights below them. Claire leaned on the railing. You did it. Vincent stood beside her. Did what? You introduced me like it was normal, she said. Like you weren't afraid. Vincent's gaze stayed on the skyline. I was afraid. Claire turned toward him. Then why? Vincent finally looked at her. Because I'd rather be afraid and honest than comfortable and alone. Claire's chest tightened. She didn't argue. She simply stepped closer. Vincent didn't pull her in. He waited. Claire lifted her hand to his collar, smoothing it with a small, intimate gesture that made his breath catch. You're learning, she whispered. Vincent's voice was low. So are you. She smiled. What am I learning? Vincent's gaze held hers. That you don't have to fight to stay yourself. Claire's eyes softened. She kissed him there, slow, warm, unhurried. A kiss that didn't ask permission from the world. A kiss that belonged to them. When they got home, the night didn't turn dramatic. It turned tender. They cooked something simple, laughed when Vincent tried to improve the recipe and made it worse, and Claire told him he had no right to be surprised because he ignored instructions on principle. Vincent raised a brow. I follow instructions. Claire looked at him. You follow outcomes. He laughed, and the sound made the apartment feel like it had changed shape, less like a penthouse, more like a home. Later, in the quiet, Vincent held her close without tightening his grip, as if he had finally learned that love didn't require pressure. Claire rested her head on his chest and listened to his heartbeat. Do you ever think about the club? She asked quietly. Vincent exhaled. Unfortunately. Claire smiled into him. You were ridiculous. Vincent's voice was soft. I know. And jealous. Yes. And controlling. Vincent was silent for a moment, then he said, Yes, and I'm sorry. Claire lifted her head. You've apologized already. Vincent looked at her seriously. I don't want it to be a one-time apology. I want it to be a permanent change. Claire studied him. That was the thing about Vincent now. He didn't promise impossible things. He promised effort. He promised behavior. He promised respect. Those were the only promises that mattered. The next day, something happened that could have shattered everything if they had been the people they were at the beginning. Elena. Claire was leaving a meeting when she saw her in the lobby. Elegant, composed, calm, still the kind of woman who didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Claire's stomach tightened automatically, but then she remembered what Elena had told her weeks ago. It had ended long before Claire ever arrived in the picture. Elena wasn't her enemy. Elena spotted Claire and walked over. Hi, Elena said. Do you have a minute? Claire nodded. Yes. They stepped aside to a quiet corner. Elena's expression was not tense. It was resolved. I wanted to tell you that everything is finalized, Elena said. There's nothing hanging. Claire exhaled slowly. Thank you. Elena smiled faintly. You don't have to thank me. You didn't take anything from me. Claire studied her. Then why come here? Elena's eyes softened just slightly. Because Vincent is learning, and men like him don't learn unless the people around them stop letting them avoid reality. Claire almost laughed. That sounds like you know him well. I do, Elena admitted, and I also know that you're good for him. Claire's throat tightened unexpectedly. Elena continued, calm and clear. He needed someone who wouldn't accept being owned, someone who wouldn't confuse intensity with love. Claire nodded slowly. I didn't. Elena smiled. Good. Then she added quietly, be happy. Don't apologize for it. And with that, Elena walked away, leaving Claire standing there feeling something rare. Closure. That evening, Claire told Vincent about the conversation. His jaw tightened, not with anger, more like regret. She shouldn't have had to come, he said. Claire sat beside him on the couch. Maybe she wanted to. Maybe it was her way of closing her own chapter. Vincent looked at Claire, and his voice softened. I'm glad she spoke to you kindly. Claire reached for his hand. So am I. A week later, Vincent did something that made Claire pause in a different way. He didn't show up with a flashy gift. He didn't arrange a grand surprise. He gave her something that looked like paperwork. An envelope. Claire opened it and frowned. Inside was a formal letter. A clear statement of boundaries within the company, signed and filed, separating their personal relationship from any professional influence. Transparent, documented, protective, not in a controlling way, but in a respectful way. Claire looked up, stunned. You did all this? Vincent nodded. It's not romantic, he said. Claire's eyes softened. Yes, it is. Vincent blinked. It is? Claire nodded. Because it means you care about my life, not just your feelings. Vincent's expression shifted, something like relief crossing his face. That night on the terrace, the city lights reflecting in the glass, Vincent stood behind her, not touching it first. Claire turned toward him. What's going on in that head of yours? Vincent exhaled slowly. I'm thinking about the future. Claire's heart sped up slightly. Okay. Vincent looked at her with steady seriousness. I don't want a future that depends on you giving up parts of yourself. Claire held his gaze. I won't. Vincent nodded, as if that was exactly what he needed to hear. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Claire froze, not because of fear, but because she understood the weight of moments like this. Vincent didn't open it immediately. He looked at her and said, This isn't a trap. This isn't a claim. This is me asking if you want to keep building what we already are. Claire's throat tightened. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, elegant and simple. No excess. No loud statement. Just something that looked like commitment without control. Claire stared at it. Vincent's voice stayed calm. You can say no. You can say not yet. You can say yes. Nothing changes unless you choose it. Claire's eyes filled slightly, and she hated how human she felt. How soft. How did you become this man? She whispered. Vincent's mouth tilted. You taught me the difference between wanting and owning. Claire let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and a tear combined. She reached out, took the ring, and held it in her palm for a moment, feeling the cool metal against her skin. Then she looked up at him. Yes, she said simply. But only if we keep doing it this way. Vincent's exhale was shaky with relief. Always. Claire slid the ring onto her finger. Vincent didn't pull her into him hard. He didn't lift her, spin her, perform. He simply kissed her, slow and deep, like the entire world could disappear and he would still know exactly where she was. When they pulled apart, Claire rested her forehead against his. You know, she murmured, you're still going to have moments. Vincent smiled faintly. Moments of what? Jealousy, Claire said, amused. Possessive thoughts. Vincent raised an eyebrow. I'm human. Claire nodded. Exactly. And I'm not going to punish you for being human. I'm going to hold you to the man you chose to become. Vincent's eyes softened. That's all I want. A month later, they returned to the same nightclub. Not to relive it, to rewrite it. Claire stood at the entrance wearing a red dress again, different from the first one, more elegant, less sharp, but still unmistakably Claire. She did it on purpose. Vincent's eyes locked on her the moment she stepped into the lights. Claire smirked. Don't. Vincent exhaled, then laughed quietly, like he had to admit defeat before it even started. I'm not doing it, he said. Claire stepped closer. What are you not doing? Vincent held her gaze. I'm not surrounding you, I'm not removing men, I'm not embarrassing myself. Claire's smile widened. Good. A man approached, polite, respectful, clearly unaware of the story behind the two of them. Hi, he said to Claire. Can I buy you a drink? Claire looked at Vincent. Just once. Vincent didn't move. He didn't harden, he didn't signal anyone. He simply waited. Claire turned back to the man with a calm smile. No thank you, I'm here with my fiancé. The man nodded politely and walked away. Claire turned back to Vincent. You survived, she teased. Vincent's eyes were warm. I didn't just survive. Claire raised an eyebrow. Oh? Vincent leaned in, voice low and intimate. I won. Claire laughed softly. That's not what happened. Vincent's mouth tilted. Then what happened? Claire stepped close, her hand sliding lightly up his chest. You learned, she whispered, and I stayed. Vincent's expression softened fully. He kissed her right there, under the lights, with the music loud around them and the world moving on like it had nothing to do with them. And this time it didn't. Because this wasn't a scandal, it was a choice. A quiet, powerful, unwavering choice, made every day, without fear, without ownership, without games. Claire didn't become smaller in Vincent's world. She became brighter, and Vincent, for the first time in his life, didn't tighten his grip to keep something. He opened his hand, and she stayed anyway.